My subscribers know how much I love H4350 powder for my 30-06 loads, but H4350 is pretty much unobtainium right now, and I need to conserve what I have. This H4350 and Varget, it's like being in possession of gold right now. But if you saw my last 30-06 powder video, you know that I played around with IMR 4451 a little bit as an alternative to H4350, but I never really did any serious load development with this. But I believe now's the time for me to start looking at IMR 4451 as a replacement for H4350 in my 30-06 loads anyway. I have about 8 pounds of 4451 just sitting on my shelf over there collecting dust right now. So I'm going to try to put it to use. And in addition to this, my email is just getting bombarded right now with people wanting load data for this powder. So hopefully you get some of that out of this video too. I'm developing this load using the Barnes 168 grain TTSX, which is my favorite bullet for 30-06 and what I feel is the most versatile bullet for the cartridge. The rifle I'll be developing the load for is a pre-64 Winchester Model 70, a rifle my grandfather purchased, and he handed it down to me. This rifle is pretty much all original, except for the McMillan McWoody stock that I bedded the action into. And it's also got a free-floated barrel, and I worked the trigger down to 2.5 pounds on it. So it's a great rifle, and this rifle has been on multiple continents and has harvested countless game animals over the last 60 years. This is the original factory Winchester barrel on this. I don't know if you can see the markings on that. And this barrel is over 60 years old. This isn't a match grade aftermarket barrel. Even though this is a 60-plus-year-old sporter weight barrel, my grandpa and I have taken great care of it, and it still shoots sub-MOA with ease. As long as I don't shoot LRXs or Accubons out of it, which this barrel really doesn't like those bullets. I'm also going to add a few more tidbits of reloading wisdom into this video that I didn't include in my last load development video. So hopefully you get more than just 4451 powder data for 30-06 out of this video. Okay, when I initially started playing around with this powder a little bit in 30-06, what was interesting was I found that with exact charge weights between H4350 and IMR 4451, I was getting very, very similar velocities. And this powder seems to pack into my 30-06 Nosler cases almost exactly the same as H4350. So, they're pretty similar, and you're not going to really find a lot of load data on this. I mean, that's why I'm doing this video. But when I played around with it last time, I worked up from 53 grains to 54.5 grains. And at 54.5 grains, I was a little bit under 2,700 feet per second. And I definitely don't want to be there. I want to be closer, a little bit over 2,800 feet per second with the 168 grain Barnes TTSX. So my goal with this is if I can't get close to 2,800 feet per second, then, I'm probably not going to like this powder because that's where I want to be. But, if I get, plus or minus 20 feet per second from 2,800 feet per second, I'll be happy with that. So I'm going to start where I left off and work up a little bit past 54.5 grains. And if this is anything like H4350, I'll probably end up working up to about 57 grains, I think. So let's start loading up some cases. The first thing I do before I put my brass in the tumbler or do anything to my brass is I deprime it. And I deprime as a separate step for basically two reasons. Number one, I like the primer pocket to get cleaned out by the stainless media while I'm tumbling this. And the second reason is because none of my full-length sizing dies have the expander balls in them. I take that out because I don't like the way it works the brass, and those expander balls are one of the leading cause of concentricity problems. So I don't use those expander balls. Instead, I expand the necks as a separate step with 21st century mandrel expander dies. Tumbling brass. Tumble, tumble, tumble. Happiness is clean brass. I love it. And if you're not using one of these transfer magnets to clean up the pins, man, you're missing out. Makes things way easier. And I love these matchmaker dies because you just drop the bullet in and seat it. Makes it real easy, and these dies are real precise too. I'm really starting to like them more than the Reading and other dies that I have. Super awesome. So now it's time to head to the range and do some optimal charge weight testing on this. And basically, I'm not shooting for groups today. I'm just looking for velocity nodes. You know, preferably a good velocity node with a low extreme spread. So let's get to the range and start throwing some bullets down range. Okay, so my charge weight testing is done. There's two visible velocity nodes in this chart. One centered at 55.5 grains, and another one centered at 56.7 grains. Ironically, this 56.7 node was also my second lowest extreme spread. It's also in that 2,800 feet per second velocity area that I've been looking for. So this is the powder charge that I'm choosing for the next step in my load development process. When I was loading these, I started to get a little crunch seating bullets at the 57 grain mark right here. So if you go that high with your loads, you might want to use a dropper tube. I also fired one shot at 57.6 grains and got my first cratered primer. So I stopped right here. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy with the powder charge testing. So let's move on to testing our seating depths. And another trick I want to give you guys, and I forgot to add this in that little reloading video I did, but when I'm using my expander mandrels, I actually like to do it twice. You know, I'll bring it up once, then I'll give the shell a little half turn, and then I'll go up and do it twice. So I actually hit each casing, each empty case, twice with the expander mandrel. I'll come up, give it once, bring it back down, give it a half a twist, and then do it again. And I know it sounds stupid, but one of the things I've noticed is my loads have a lot more consistency and precision when I when I do it twice. On some of my match loads that I shoot matches with, that I seat my bullets with a chamber die with a gauge on it, I noticed that seating pressure is a lot more consistent when I run the case through the expander mandrel twice. So just a little tip. Okay, so now it's time to head to the range and test out some seating depths. Basically, I loaded down about 40 thousandths jump on up to about 85 thousandths jump. And I'm going to see which seating depth brings me the best accuracy. So on this part of the testing, I am shooting for groups. I've got to bring my A game to the range today, let the barrel cool really good between shots, because I am shooting for groups today. Group size is important today. But, at the same time, I'm still monitoring velocities and extreme spreads. So that's important too still. I'm not going to abandon that idea. And this is at my charge weight. All of these bullets are at that charge weight that I picked at 56.7 grains. So let's head to the range and hopefully shoot some good groups today. Getting 2806 out of this. Well, this powder with that 60-year-old barrel just blew my mind. I really don't put much credence into 3-shot groups, but man, this gun was shooting great today. These are all 100-yard groups, and I only pulled one shot all day long. Basically my rear bag tipped off the edge of the shooting bench when I fired this shot, so I'm going to disregard this shot right here. But all the other shots throughout the whole day felt good, and I'm pretty sure I was doing my part. I mean, look at this group right here. That's a true clover leaf right there. You could see with seating depths here how it kind of panned out. It got good, and then it started to get bad, then it got good again. But we'll chart this out, and we'll analyze some of this data right now. So here's the chart for my seating depth testing. In my last load development video, I told you that the TSX and TTSX bullets always seem to have these wide accuracy nodes when it comes to seating depth. Usually centered somewhere around 50 thousandths of jump. And this test further verifies my hypothesis on that. This accuracy node right here at 53 thousandths jump is pretty damn amazing for this old gun. I mean, this is definitely the seating depth I'm going to settle on for further testing. One more important thing to add is that when I seated to 65 thousandths, I started compressing powder, and my groups basically opened up to 2 inches when that happened. Then they settled back down to sub MOA groups. And I'm going to talk more about this. A long time ago, an experienced reloader told me that a powder charge that was exactly 100% was what he called no man's land. What he meant by no man's land was that it's kind of a transition zone where accuracy is seldom found. Basically, when you run a powder charge of, 95, 96, 97, 98% capacity, consistency, and conversely, accuracy is usually pretty amazing right there. But also, when you compress a load at about, 100, 102, 103, or 104%, those compressed loads are usually pretty amazing as well. But when you run a powder charge at exactly 100%, this is no man's land, and consistency is often poor right here. And that's exactly what we see right here. This range right here is about 100 to 101% compressed loads. And you could see that the areas just before 100% and the areas just after 100% case fill result in great accuracy, but exactly 100% doesn't. And this would be no man's land. So loads don't always do this, so don't think it's something that is going to happen every time and it's scientifically repeatable all the time. But it happens frequently enough that I'm a believer in no man's land. The crusty old bastard who told me this decades ago, I think he was absolutely right. But, don't think it's something that happens every single time, because it doesn't. But you'll notice that it happens pretty frequently. So I personally like to avoid having empty space in my case, a highly compressed load, or an exactly 100% case fill. This is why I use a lot of the powders that I use. But for the 30-06 with 168 grain TTSX, seated in the 50 thousandths range, IMR 4451 is a fantastic powder for accuracy and for optimal case fill. So I'm going to load up about 20 rounds with this charge weight of 56.7 grains with the bullet seated to 53 thousandths jump. But this time, I'm going to shoot several 5-shot groups at 200 yards. If you really want to see what a load does, you really should move out beyond 100 yards, in my opinion. Since this rifle will have a 200-yard zero, I'm going to shoot some 5-shot groups at 200 yards. So let's start loading them up so I can head back to the range tomorrow morning. And after I size my brass, I always give it a good wipe down. And while I'm giving it a wipe down, I'm going to inspect the brass for any cracks or dents or any type of damage. It's kind of that one last safety check before you continue through the process. And usually this is where I find stuff. One of the reasons that I like chamfering and deburring on one of these machines is it does it with the case down. Rather than when you use one of those tools, a lot of people hold the case up and they chamfer in it. And you drop a lot of those shavings down into the case and you end up having to get it out. And it could conceivably, those brass shavings could clog up the flash holes. So I really like these machines because you're always chamfering and deburring with the cartridge facing down. So that's what I like about it. And what's awesome about this 56.7 grain load is that it's about a, by my estimation, a 98% fill load, meaning that it's not quite compressed, but it's filling up virtually all the space in the case. So I'm really happy about that. Basically, when I hit 57 grains, actually just over 57 grains, I think when I hit 57.3 is when I started to getting compressed loads, and when I went above that, I used a drop tube to fill the cases. But that's one of the benefits about this this powder node I picked, that 56.7, is it's right on the edge of 100% fill, so I like that. I'm very pleased with these 200-yard groups that I shot today. I did have a little bit of wind today, but I believe that I managed it well, and I wouldn't put any blame on the wind. I don't think I pulled any shots either. I mean, not even this. I don't feel like I pulled any shots. My final specs for this load and seating depth have an average velocity of 2,806 feet per second, an extreme spread of 16, and a standard deviation of 8. And this is over 20 shots. You can see this group right here at 200 yards. That's under half MOA. That's just over half MOA. And that's at right about half MOA. So I'd say, this is a true half MOA load out of my favorite hunting rifle. So I'm pretty damn happy with IMR 4451 and the 30-06. I'm getting the accuracy I want, I'm getting the precision I want, and I'm getting the velocity I want. And I actually have this powder on my shelf. So it's a win-win. Well, I hope you enjoyed what's probably my last reloading video. I really don't like doing load development, and adding in filming while going through the reloading process makes it even more labor intensive and less enjoyable to do. So please don't bombard me with questions about load data for 4451 on other cartridges, because I've only used IMR 4451 for 6.5 Creedmoor and 30-06, and I really didn't like it for my 6.5 Creedmoor. So what you saw in this video is basically all the data I have for this powder. I can say that it behaves very similar to H4350, but H4350 probably gives a slight velocity advantage for any given charge weight. Probably about 20 to 30 feet per second, which is to most people is inconsequential. So once again, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like my content. And as always, good hunting.